to Rod the Magnif's Coffee and Beats. I am your musical barista, Rod the Magnificent. And here we are. You guys made it with me this far to season 2. Yes, season 2 of Coffee and Beats is here with a new setup. You know, I had to upgrade, you know what I mean? A little bit. Got a little success off the first season, so had to do a little upgrading, you know, with my new place. You know, I was doing a little work in the background while I was getting ready for season 2. And I just wanted to make sure I make it special for each and every one of you. And now, with that being said, let's get right into our show. But before I get into that, I would like to share with you guys what I'm drinking in my new cafe. Yes, we turning it up a notch, y'all. We turning it up a notch. Now this is poked in, but we got the little pumpkin pie.
We getting a little pumpkin spice in our life.
This is around the time in August where the pumpkin spice latte makes its debut at all your local Starbucks locations. Not sponsoring Starbucks by any means, but I'm making my own Starbucks. You know what I mean? Because
that's what we do here.
Just keeping it simple, y'all, for the first episode of season 2. And I got a lot of music in store for you guys. A lot of music that I've missed out on. So I'm going to be playing a lot of catch up. So we're going to do some taste tester episodes to kick off season 2. It's going to be my little way of catching up with all the albums that have came out. What better way to kick off season 2 than to start off with a Billie Eilish review. For those who might not know, you don't need an introduction. Just go read Vogue magazine, go read Time magazine. You pretty much know who she is by now. This is her second studio album after captivating the world with ghostly sounds, hard-hitting pop beats by her brother Phineas. They captured the world's attention, which led to Grammy Awards winning success from their first debut album, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? Now, with her first album, she basically grabbed the pop music bull by the horn, so to speak, to give us some dark and in-your-face electropop with a little sprinkle of hip-hop influence here and there. But though this album displayed some forms of darkness, Billie did display some forms of vulnerability. For example, in songs like When the Party Is Over. However, with Happier Than Ever, we find Billie tapping even deeper into that vulnerability with the opening track, Getting Older. As far as the lyrical content goes in this particular album, Billie sets the record straight about how she was perceived on her first album, image-wise. And even though this album says it's happier than ever, it's more of a metaphor than actual reality. Most of the lyrics off this album come off as an unapologetic explanation of why she is the way she is. Evidence of that is found in the spoken word track, Not My Responsibility. It's kind of like a poem, a little spoken word poem about how people perceived her and how people body shamed her. This album as a whole, it's definitely a sit down and let's talk type of album from Billie Eilish, and I'm all for it. Now, production wise, Phineas takes a more lighter approach, as a lot of the production on this thing is very spacey. It's got a lot of acoustic songs on here and in some areas, and relying less on special effects and more on dialogue. If I had to make a comparison to Phineas' production on this album in comparison to his previous work, I would have to compare it to Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire and Doc Octopus. The first Spider-Man before that focused more on explosions, special effects. Spider-Man 2 focused more on storyline and character development. Here we see Phineas focusing his production on imitating that sad tone that this album gives off, but in a good way. Now, as far as the innovation in regards to this album, although we've seen pop artists in the past change ideas as their career progress, Billie does this quicker than most pop artists that I've witnessed personally. A lot of artists, they go through, they bring out the first album and they bring out the second album, and they're being what they were perceived to be with their first album. And maybe it takes about 3 or 4 albums where they say, oh, I want my own control of my music. I want to show people who I really am. I want to show my own creative juices. But here we have Billie Eilish again grabbing the bull by the horn and going from dark to light, but technically blonde, because her hair is blonde, and you know what I mean. Even though this has been done before with other artists, I think she pulls it off pretty well. And comparing this album with her first album would be like comparing apples and oranges. She still manages to captivate its listeners with timely lyrics, interesting and more mature themes and topics. And you also see her growth. As far as my favorite tracks off this album, there's song, of course, one of the lead singles, Lost Cause. I still love the bass line to that track. That okay, that was terrible, but hey, I just love that bass line.
I could do a couple of freestyles off that bass line.
Oxytocin, another excellent song. Billy Bossa Nova is also one of my favorite songs on there. Overheated, and also NDA. My least favorite tracks off the album, I'm still not in love with Your Power. I know Your Power, I know it's going to be an unpopular opinion towards many Billie Eilish fans who stand by her music, but I just cannot get into Your Power. I've tried to give it a chance. Even while listening to the album in its entirety, I still found myself bored with the track. I still don't think this was a powerful first single. I think Lost Cause was a more powerful first single. Haley's Comet, even though it's a nice song, it's still a little boring. And, you know, the whispery singing, you know, can get a little redundant for me sometimes with this album. You know, Billie's got a great voice, don't get me wrong, but the whole
creep up on you while your back is turned. I
can't go through 14 tracks of that over and over and over again. I do like this album. Do I like it more than her first one? Not necessarily, but I don't think it's by much of a mile, and I think this is a very nice project. I give this one a 7.75 out of 10. Like I said, I enjoyed a lot of elements of this album. There were other parts of this album that I got a little bored with. With that being said, I enjoy it. Check it out for yourself. Up next, we got Lorraine, or L-Rain, yes, with her second studio album, Fatigue. Now, she goes by the name of Taja Cheeks. That's her real name, but her singing name is Lorraine. I like to say Lorraine. This is her second album. Her debut was in 2017 with her self-titled album, Lorraine. And there, we were introduced with this haunted house sounding neo-soul. And although I wasn't wowed about this record, I felt that this was still a great introduction to her music, and I look forward to hearing more from her in the future. So here with Fatigue, we have a long 14-song track list with a runtime of about 30 minutes, with half of the album featuring short transitional interludes. So it's really much shorter than the track list puts out there to be. The lyrical content on this album is very dark, it's very distorted. Some of the tracks you would literally have to look up the lyrics just to understand what she's talking about, which a lot of her topics touches on low moods, depression, regret over past mistakes, and fear of the unknown. Now, as far as the production, we have a collection of tracks that fit well with her vocals, sometimes loud and in other cases somewhat ambient. And in other cases, the production is very sleek, it's very silky. Sometimes it's all over the place, which I like. I love all over the place type production. And on other occasions, it almost feels like I'm listening to a neo-soul version of Crystal Castles, which is an absolute good thing. Upon first listen, you might be thrown off by how haunting of an experience Fatigue can be at some points of the record, but I would have to say this is a bold effort, and nobody has dropped an album this year that sounds similar to this, and that's why I like it. Now, my favorite tracks on here that you can add to your playlist, tracks like Find It, Suck Teeth, Two-Face, which is one of the lead singles. Take Two is also one of the lead singles off the album, if you want to check that out just to get a nice introduction to her and her style. And Blame Me, which is an excellent ballad. This is a very good album. Now, my least favorite tracks, if I had to choose, it would be the interludes. I mean, there are so many interludes on this album. I felt like this album could have been a lot shorter. The interludes to me were unnecessary. They were supposed to be like transitional tracks into the next tracks, but it kind of left you feeling like,
okay, why did she throw that in there?
I don't know. It didn't have a good rhythm to it, and it kind of took away from my experience of enjoying this album more than I wanted to. But other than that, I still like it. I give it a 7 out of 10. Go check it out. If you haven't heard of her, you heard it here first. Up next, we got Charlotte Day Wilson with Alpha. And this is her debut album, which featured 11 songs at a runtime roughly at about 33 minutes. Now, I've been waiting since 2017 for Charlotte Day Wilson to finally...
All you gotta do is drop the album. Drop it today.
The reason for my enthusiasm for this album is because I was so blown away by her Colors performance and various appearances on Bad Bad Not Good's album 4, where she had a stellar feature on the song In Your Eyes. Though Charlotte has had more depressing sounding tracks with most of her singles that she's dropped over the last maybe 3 years or so, Alpha gives us a more feel-good lyrical approach. It's more vibrant sounding, and this is just a great sounding debut from Charlotte. When she dropped the lead single Mountains, you instantly see a change in lyrical delivery as you see she departs from her lower toned lyrics to more inspirational lyricism. Now, the production fits her voice very well, very smooth, very lush, and pleasant to the ears. And it makes sense because she is responsible for, little fun fact, 80% of the album as far as production wise. The only other contributions to this album as far as the production is Bad Bad Not Good and Sid, and that's only on 2 tracks, and I'm talking Sid from the internet. Now, this album is definitely easy on the ears and it goes down smooth like a very well made cappuccino. Nothing too original here though, but I appreciate the moods of this album, which fits her voice very well. Her vocals come out very beautiful, and it's just a soothing album to listen to. Very easy to listen to. Such an excellent debut by Charlotte Day Wilson, and definitely a chill album to play in the background while you're having friends over. And vocally, she just doesn't miss a beat with this album. Some of my favorite tracks on here: Strangers, I Can Only Whisper, Mountains, of course, the lead single, and Take Care of You with that excellent sample. Oh my goodness, that Sid feature, excellent. Mwah, excellent. If I had to choose a track that I was least favorite of, Atom Complex, it was just kind of a drag. It got a little boring towards the end, and it kind of got off to a kind of ho-hum conclusion. But other than that, I give this album a 7.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed her debut album and look forward to hearing more from Charlotte Day Wilson. But in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy this one thoroughly. Up next, I have the one that's
feels. The feels.
Snoh Aalegra is back with her 3rd studio album. And here we have Snoh having more of a confident, vibrant approach to this record. And it seems like she's still in her feelings, but she's kind of coming a little bit out of her feelings on this album. This is a follow-up to one of my favorite R&B albums of 2019. Those Feelings Again, which features a more polished sound from Snoh and was an excellent follow-up to her 2017 debut, Feels. Now, a little fun fact, Snoh worked heavily with Prince during his final years of life in helping her sharpen her vocals. And many have compared Snoh to this generation's Sade, in which she quickly downplayed the notion, which I'm glad she did. And although I think the comparison is fair. I'm not going to be Mr. Get Off My Lawn or my mom's Mrs. Get Off My Lawn. But here, Sade, Snoh, I think is an excellent comparison. Production wise though, I don't think it's a solid comparison because Snoh relies more on upbeat tracks to highlight her vocals. Lyrically, Snoh uses clever wording to get her point across, and on this album we find more vulnerability with her lyricism. With the track Lost You, we find her singing about how she fell in love with someone she didn't expect to fall in love for. And we have the other song, Dying for Your Love, where she is pouring her heart out to someone who doesn't want anything to do with her. Production wise, we get some dope tracks from none other than producer No ID. If you're not familiar with No ID, please look him up. He has an excellent resume and he did well with this album, producing most of it. We also have features from Pharrell and a couple of features from Tyler, the Creator. Now, the album crosses all the T's and it dots all the I's in every way fashionable when it comes to a typical R&B album. It addresses all the things that R&B albums accomplish, but it's smooth, it has a nice flow to it, and all the songs transition into each other well. And there are only a few speed bumps here on this album, but Snoh, where Snoh kind of gets lost in herself, which is what she does. She's in her feelings.
She's always in her feelings.
Unless you're gonna go down that trip with her, feel free to do so. Me, I'm not in my feelings, so sometimes I can hit the skip button and go to the next song. Definitely a perfect share the aux chord with your girl type album, or your wife. There's some of my favorite tracks off the album. Lost You, of course, which is the opening single. On My Mind, In the Moment, which I think is a hilarious song, and also In Your Eyes and Indecisive, the intro track, which is amazing as well. Save Yourself is one of those
I got these feels again
type tracks that, again, I'm like, I'm not feeling the way she's feeling, so I'm just gonna feel my way to the next track. If you saw what I did there. Yeah, but other than that, final score on this one, I give this one an 8 out of 10. One of the best R&B albums of the year. This group right here, Brain Story, just dropped an album, their second studio album, Ripe. And the band consists of two brothers, Kevin and Tony Martin, and they are assisted by Eric Hallstrom on the drums. Now, they are from California, and they caught my attention when they dropped their first album by the title Buck, which combines a nice fusion of soft rock, jazz, hip-hop, and psychedelic soul. Now, these guys are absolutely amazing, and with their second effort, although short, falls nowhere short of giving us banger after banger after banger. The production on this thing is flawless. I mean, every track on here got me nodding my head uncontrollably. The lyrics on here, and they only sung on a couple of the tracks off this album, and listen, even though there are similar bands that are doing the same things that Brain Story is doing, I think they executed just as flawlessly as an artist like Skin Shape, where you get these nice mellow instrumentation, just head nodders that has basically the casual music fan questioning, who is this playing right now? And you show them this album cover and you're like, these guys
are making this?
Wow. This is stellar. My favorite tracks off the album, all of them. My least favorite tracks, none of them. Simple and plain. My final score for this album. Yes, I would like to introduce to you my first 10 out of 10 album rating. please do yourself a favor. Check this album out. It gets in and it gets out. It's very short, sweet and to the point, but I bet you will not hit the skip button on any of these songs. I really appreciate this album. I'm still bumping it, and I'm a month removed from finding out that they came out with a release of this album, and it's still in the rotation. So please do yourself a favor and check this album out. A few instrumental albums I would like to quickly and briefly bring to your attention. We got the new one from Elaquent, In Color Volume 2. I give this one a 7.75 out of 10. Very good instrumental album, very mellow. Beats are very quirky. A lot of change ups in this one. Elaquent is never satisfied with just one flow. He's always changing and chopping up beats. Up next, Toonorth, who is a producer I've been following for quite some time. I actually have an unreleased track that I made, a unreleased Ride the Magnificent track that I made off one of his beats, and I'm still waiting on the perfect time to release it. But other than that, it's not off this album. This one is called Aftersome. Very mellow, very smooth album, very good. Check it out. 7 out of 10 for me. Up next, we got Stimulator Jones, man, and oh my god, this album, this instrumental album caught me off guard. To all my boom bap heads out there, please do yourself a favor, go check this album out. This album has boom bap written all over it. Up next, we got Madara, Snapshots, and again, this album, very relaxing. You can just play this one in the background too. Good instrumental album as well. 8 out of 10 for me. Last but not least, we got Marcus D with Kodoma, and it's an EP. I would say it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Short listen, get in, get out, make you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich afterwards. Very good. Check it out when you get a chance. Last but not least, new track releases. I only got one track that I want to introduce you guys to, and that's Silk Sonic. Skate. Do yourself a favor. Go check it out. And I got a message. I got a message that I want to give Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars.
All you gotta do is drop the album. Drop it today. Drop it today. Drop it today.
Drop the album today. Summer's almost over. What are you guys waiting on? Give us the album of the summer. Please. Please. Track is fire though. And that will just about do it for Coffee and Beats. And I am your musical barista, Rod the Magnificent. Don't forget to download the podcast, the audio podcast, where I will be dropping bonus content on there. So please do yourself a favor, download that as well. I am your musical barista, Rod the Magnificent. And remember, when it comes to music and when it comes to coffee, stay grounded for life. I'll see you all on the next one. Season 2. Let's get it.
All you gotta do is drop the album.